Okay, welcome. Thank you for joining us today for our session on emergency preparedness and collaboration. And this is a little bit different than what we've done in the past with emergency preparedness. This is going to be bringing three experts that are doing this every day to the conversation to talk about how things are working in their area, how that collaboration is working, and hopefully it'll provide some insights for areas that A, don't have a collaboration yet, or B, have a collaboration and maybe there's some new things that they could be doing. So on today's call, the first person that I'm going to introduce is Scott Cameron. Scott is the president and CEO of Bassa Social Innovations and the co-founder of Emergency Management Logistics Canada, EML Canada. And I think each of you on the call are fairly aware of EML. And so it's a platform that connects emergency managers, businesses, and community groups to strengthen local preparedness. With a background in sustainable community development, Scott brings a collaborative, asset-based approach to building resilience. He lives in Calgary and holds a master's degree from Royal Roads University. That's the first person on the call. Then we also have Byron Geddes, and Byron is the executive director of the Stettler Board of Trade and Community Development. He's lived in Stettler for over 50 years, holy mackerel, with business experience in oilfield, banking, cinema, and the golf industry. He has been the ED in Stettler for 4 years and has experience in fire and ambulance. And Byron is a firm believer in team-based approach to emergency management. And then our last speaker today is Clint Syme. And Clint is the Regional Director of Emergency Management for the Stettler Regional Emergency Management Agency. They go by SREMA. And he's also the Manager of Protective Services for the County of Stettler. SREMA looks after the emergency management program for the County of Stettler, Town of Stettler, Village of Big Valley, Village of Donalda, and the summer villages of Roshan Sands and White Sands. Clint is also one of the three co-leads of the Alberta Central Region All Hazard Incident Management Team, where he has been deployed several times to incidents across the province since joining in 2019. Clint holds diplomas in police and investigative studies from Grant MacEwan and another in disaster and emergency management from NATE. Clint is an advocate for collaboration and cooperation in emergency management and believes private and public sectors need to work together to boost local resilience. Thank you, gentlemen. So glad you could come. Scott, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks, Laura. Yeah, no, I'm excited to be part of this webinar today. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this. We've been working in collaboration partnership with the Alberta Chambers of Commerce around the free access to EML Canada over the past year, which is actually coming to an end. I hate to say it, next Friday. So our next Tuesday, the 30th of September. It was a collaboration with the Canadian Red Cross to make the platform free of charge across Alberta for every Alberta municipality, First Nation, Métis community, local business, and community organization, which includes local chambers. And we have seen some local chambers sign up. So if you haven't already, by all means, jump onto EMLplatform.ca and use the promo code CRCAB and at least get started today. It's a great day to start. Um, I'm really excited to be sharing the platform or the webinar today with both Byron and Clint. Um, Settler is quickly becoming the poster child for doing this local engagement and this local emergency preparedness, capacity building, resilience building at a local level. And in fact, we featured them as a case study in the new Emergency Manager magazine, which the inaugural issue hit the streets around June this past year. So happy to be here on this panel with both Byron and Clint, and looking forward to the conversation. We thought a conversation between the three different insights or perspectives would be a good way to present this information.
I think so. So I'm going to start with a question, and Clint, we're going to start with you. And I have a feeling that once the conversation starts, we'll just kind of go from there. So, Clint, what triggered Stettler's move toward a more engaged community-wide emergency preparedness model?
Yeah, great question. So, what initially triggered it was as being a member of CRAM at the Central Region team, as you mentioned. I was deployed during the 2023 wildfire season to several communities across the province. So, on one of my deployments, I was the operations section chief for an area that was more known for its oil field activity that had already undergone an evacuation. And one of the major hurdles that we really had when we were there was we were wanting to use local resources, local businesses, local equipment, local people, but everyone had been evacuated. And all the different phone lines and methods of communication went to the shops and businesses that were evacuated. There was no one manning the phones. We had no way of getting in contact with anybody. So then we had to end up bringing in resources from outside the area, like Leduc, from Calgary, from Edmonton, which was a couple hours away. And over time, the locals started hearing of this and obviously were very upset that it's their community. They have buying it. They had everything and were more than willing to want to come in and participate and help us out. And they weren't engaged at all. And really what it came down to was, well, we had no method of contacting you. So I really didn't want to see the same thing happen to our home community here in Stettler. So that's what really triggered me reaching out to Byron Geddes with the Board of Trade. I could think of no better person to help me engage with our local businesses and get the ball rolling to try and start a sort of process so that the same thing wouldn't happen to us.
Nice. Okay, so Byron, when you got that outreach from Clint, how did you sort of see this fitting into what the Board of Trade was doing and other components of Stettler?
So great question. So one of the things, chambers, boards of trade, economic development officers, they need to be getting in front of their businesses as much as possible. Whether you're on a funding drive or whether you're just out for, to get the pulse, if you will, from the community. I try and get out as often as I can to businesses, and I'm often asking, the questions: how's it going? What challenges are you facing, etc. And when Clint came to me, it made perfect sense. I can kill two birds with one stone, but more importantly, I didn't want to see what happened out west happen to Stettler. If there was ever a serious incident where we're having to call in people from outside of our community. I'm all about the Think Local Shop Stettler program. And last thing I want to see is competitors from the city coming out to do stuff that we can do. And so making that happen was as simple as like 3 or 4 clicks, and you're signed up. The system is beautiful, easy to function, and I just the big issue is apathy. And if you get in front of the decision makers in their businesses, they're more apt to just sit down and make 4 clicks, and they'll be signed up, and then they're always covered in case of emergency. So that was the big thing for me.
Thank you. Scott, EML Canada played a role in supporting Stettler's preparation status or strategy. What specific capabilities did the platform provide to help local organizations and individuals get their emergency profiles going?
Yeah, thanks. So, Laura, we designed the platform so that it would be easy to use, accessible 24/7. We have an onboarding team. So, as Byron said, those 4 clicks that got businesses onto the platform, and really for a local business or a chamber of commerce to create their profile. I mean, you went through that process and created one for the Alberta Chambers of Commerce. We equate it to, building a profile on any other social media platform. So it's, very similar. Think about it as what do I want my local emergency management organization to know about me as a business or our products, services, and supports so that in a time of need, um, we can expedite the searching process, if you will. So really, when local businesses or chambers sign up, our onboarding team reaches out. We provide um, materials to help them understand the platform, how to use it. The platform has a date and time stamp on every profile. So every 90 days, anybody that has a profile on the platform gets a reminder just saying, hey, log in, just check to make sure that the information is still current and relevant and update it. Hit the update button, and every profile has a date and time stamp on it. And it's one of those sort of accountability pieces or proof of engagement that if every 90 days you can just take 5 minutes and log in, update your information, reset your date and timestamp, then someone like Clint or his logistics team at SREMA can go, okay, well, these guys know what's going on. And then we have some tools embedded in the program. But really it was how do we make this simple? And what we loved about the partnership with the Alberta Chambers and specifically the Canadian Red Cross was that we want to remove the barriers for local businesses and even $49 a year, we see that as a barrier. I mean, if you haven't had a disaster, if you haven't been called in X number of years to help out, that becomes sort of a factor. So we're working hard to try to make the platform actually free across Canada. We were in Ottawa last week having some really great meetings, but that's the intention is easy. Um, Something that sort of you're able to reaffirm your commitment to your local emergency management program every 90 days. And in, every month you receive a little newsletter that just helps to keep things on the top of your mind, which
Mhm.
is actually, I hope, a benefit for, Clint and Byron that all of the businesses, and I would say you're probably about 30 or 40, maybe even 50 businesses that are on your resource management list, they're all getting a little bit of a reminder every month that, hey, you're part of this program, and we value that.
Well, I when you originally talked to me about the fact that, after 90 days I was going to get an email, um, that is hugely valuable because there's so many changes that are happening on an ongoing basis at a business that if you're not updating, there's a really good chance that when there is an emergency, the contact information is going to be wrong. That person's not going to be there anymore. Like there's so many bits and pieces that become a challenge. That 90-day thing is really is very good.
Well, I think it's also in response to the fact that we know that emergency management is a corner of the desk thing. It's not, I mean, Clint has many other things on his plate. Emergency management is one of the many things that is on his plate.
Hmm.
Keeping a current resource list is on the corner of that desk. And Clint can probably speak to that. And, it's not central to what Byron does on a day-to-day basis.
Hmm.
So, we see ourselves as a valuable tool that can just give them a level of confidence that their list is up to date to the extent that people respond to that
Yes,
little reminder.
that's right.
So it really is about creating those connections and
Mhm.
then creating that sense of responsibility and accountability to your local community that, yeah, I'm part of this local emergency management program. And certainly Clint and Byron can speak to that in terms of how that's uh, played out for them in Stettler.
Yeah. So Clint, I know that both you and Byron have gone out knocking on doors, and actually gone in person. How much of a difference has it made that when you go through the door, you have a uniform on?
So that's the funny thing. The moment that you have a uniformed person there, whether it's ambulance, fire, peace officer,
Mhm.
police, whoever it is that's a first responder, you're immediately getting people's attention.
Yeah.
So we thought of no better way to capitalize on that
Mm.
than when we did that door knocking program.
Yeah.
So with me in uniform, telling my stories of why we want this business in
Mhm.
particular to be involved and how important it is to have that local capacity built up and accessible, especially during a time of disaster and evacuation. That really just helped bring everything home. And there wasn't a single business owner that didn't resonate with what we were saying. Every single one was 100% on board with wanting to go and sign up. And with the help of Scott and his team, really helped make it simple for them. They helped us go and even draft a step by step of here's how to go and sign up. On the second go round, we even went with them to make sure that they did it properly, handed everything off just to really sit down and make sure.
Mhm.
We have a third one planned. We're actually going to bring a computer now for anyone that still hasn't done it and is on our list. We're going to do it for you while we have your attention
Yes.
and fill it out. It takes 2 minutes and it's super easy and fast.
Yeah.
So then there really is no excuse anymore on not getting that done. But it's been a resounding success.
That's good. That's good. Byron, you talked about the collaboration with the Board of Trade and businesses. Has there been a strong uptake from local business because they're Board of Trade members, or because this is something they've heard about and they know they should be involved in?
So I would love to say it's just because they love the Board of Trade. Honestly, if you walk in through the front door and you engage the decision maker, you are going to have a way better level of success. Again, our businesses know who the Board of Trade is, but it's more important that they know that you care about their business.
Mm.
So the old adage, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, really kind of comes into play here, because at the end of the day, it's important that it's really important that when you are engaging your businesses, that they know that you're there. They see, last thing you want to hear is, oh, hey, it's the first time I've seen you in 3 years. What's going on? Right. So if they know that you're coming in every quarter, every, couple times a year, even, it's really important that when you come in, you give them something that's going to be of benefit to them. This obviously is a huge benefit to them.
Yeah.
And, it's not just the free membership. A lot of the businesses that we keyed on were industrial and commercial based businesses that would benefit from, like, the three counties or the Alberta, or maybe even the three provinces. So a lot of those businesses have products that are just, it's another option, for their company to be involved in the emergency program at retail. You don't have to give discounts or anything like that because it's emergency. It's just another opportunity to maybe sell your product or get your product out there. So, and I'm all about, trying to get Stettler's products province-wide, countrywide, worldwide, right? So.
If we're
Yeah,
going
can
to
I?
have an emergency, it's kind of nice if there is actual products and services that we could be just shifting within the province. If there's something that's not in an area, shifting it the province is so much easier than bringing it in from outside the province or outside the country.
Yeah, can I just riff off that a little
Yeah.
bit, Laura? Because I think there's two pieces there that Byron has spoken to. One is local economic recovery. I mean, if Stettler has a disaster, the first businesses that should have the opportunity to use their stock, or their products and services, should be those local businesses that would be hardest hit in a disaster.
Mhm.
And so if you think about a grocery store, for example, and we saw this happen in Wood Buffalo, was that they had connected with the local, I think it was Sobeys, and this is not a plug for any particular brand, but the insurance industry would inevitably be called in to compensate that grocer for all the lost products
Mhm.
when it sits there on the shelf and is contaminated by smoke and everything else. They managed to work with the local team in Wood Buffalo, saying, "Hey, you go in, you take anything and everything that you need, just kind of inventory it for us so that, first of all, then we're not shipping food in when it's all sitting there in a business that's closed. It reduces insurance costs, it improves accessibility, and it helps that business know that they're playing a vital role, even though they're evacuated, but they're still participating in the local, so I think, as a stimulating local economy,
Mhm.
that's part of why we're doing what we're doing. The the second piece is, as Byron said, businesses in Stettler, and we know a number of them. We've heard these stories. They have products and services that are available to Lacombe County and Red Deer County and Knee and beyond. And so they have the option of having just their free local business profile, which is connected directly to SREMA's profile, or they can go to a paid profile because now they want to be on Red Deer's list and on Lacombe's list and Fox Creek and
Mhm.
others. So they have that option of saying, hey, in a disaster here in the province or across the country, we're available to help. And so all that paid profile does is elevate their visibility on the platform and makes it available for others. And we did see evidence of that where local businesses signed up because of Clinton Byron going out, and Dave Brand at Red Deer County went, oh, I hadn't thought of them. Click,
Mhm.
and they're on his list now. And so they elevated themselves from a free profile to a paid profile.
Well, and that's super important. And one of the conversations that I've had in the last couple of years with different businesses around business resiliency, and preparedness is making sure that you actually you're an approved vendor.
Hmm.
Anywhere and everywhere that you actually want your business, make sure you're on the approved vendor list, because in the middle of the emergency, the accounting department isn't doing a finance check on you. Like,
Yeah.
either you're on the list or you're not. And if you're not on the list, then you're going to get missed this time around. So, making sure that those things that are a little bit time consuming but aren't difficult are taken
Yeah.
care of. And if you are part of the EML system and you're getting once a month, you're getting a note and you're getting an update then it really is at the front of your mind, which I think is super important, for a lot of businesses that maybe hadn't sort of thought about, something could happen
Yeah.
along the way.
And it
So,
was it was that feedback, now Clint and Byron, I said that they have like maybe 30 to 50 businesses, local businesses on their resource management list. But now Clint has the ability to be able to go in and look at that list and go, okay, these 20 are already approved vendors. So in the platform, he can just go to their profile, click on I think it says verify right now. We're looking at
mhm,
changing that language, but it elevates them to an approved vendor list. So now in a disaster, if he just wants to send it out to the people that are already approved
mhm,
vendors, he has that option, or he can send it out wide to everybody that's on the resource list, knowing that he may end up finding some vendors that haven't yet gone through that approval process,
mhm.
but they still have the products and services that he needs.
Fantastic. Um, Clint, you know, what is one lesson you'd share with other regional emergency managers, looking to mobilize their communities the way that Stettler has? And I feel like Stettler's done this quickly. That might be a wrong thought. You probably think it took a long time, but it does feel like you're moving pretty quickly.
And you're correct. At the time, it definitely felt like it was a very long, drawn out process. But honestly, within the span of a year, like we went from basically having nothing and
Mhm,
really having no engagement to having 40, 50 businesses signed up and engaged and wanting to participate. So just by that hallmark alone, like we've had like leaps and bounds of success just in that 1 year. But the one lesson that I'd really let everyone know is I can't overstate how important it is to go and actually meet with your local businesses in person. Like in this digital age, everyone likes going and pumping out emails and doing everything digitally. It's the easy button. And as Scott so rightfully said, emergency management is a corner of my desk, and trying to deal with all the logistics side of it is a corner of that desk, a corner of a corner.
Mhm.
So you really have to manage your time well on that aspect. And to even just go like once a month,
Mhm.
dedicate a day with your local board of trade, with your chamber of commerce, go and meet with the businesses, see their concerns, let them know the importance of the program and why their business matters if there were to be a disaster or an emergency in your community, and the part that they would be able to play in that. I really can't overstate how important that local tie-in is, and you get to meet the members of your community and get that buy-in, and it's a networking opportunity on top of that. Even one day a month really goes, and that's really all we did. We did it one day a quarter, basically, there, where we'd go out to everyone, and we had a resounding success with that. So even just taking one day
Mhm.
really does put in dividends at the end.
So, question for you with regards to other communities that may have things underway or may not. Is there a Clint in every policing area? Like, is there somebody that does what you do? Or is the Stettler region maybe a little bit different?
So we are different in the fact that we're a regionalized program where I'm the regional director and I look after 6 different municipalities. When you go to some of the larger centers, like Red Deer County, they're pretty similar with their partnership, but even still, each community still has their own DEM, but they're all in partnership together. Go into the cities, you're going to have a dedicated director of emergency management, might be the fire chief. For example, Lacombe County, City of Lacombe, it's the fire chief, that's their director of emergency management. So each community does have someone that's designated in that role.
Okay.
The kicker is, though, that more often than not, unless it's like a major city, it's also someone's side of the desk position.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So any chambers we've got on the call today, if they're connecting with their town or their city, there's somebody that can be that connecting point. That's great. Okay. Byron, what about you? If you were to share a lesson learned in all of the work that you guys have put into it from a Board of Trade perspective, is there anything that you would share?
Yeah, actually, a couple things. And as Clint and I go out and we do this in the community, we are it continually evolves, and one of the things that I'm kind of toying with now is going and buying a couple hundred thumb drives and putting the information on it, as well as putting information on from the chamber's plan and HR covered, and some of the other partners that we would use, as well as your emergency preparedness, like how to back up your computers and all of your files and all that sort of stuff in case there's a disaster such as a tornado ripped through your town or a flood or anything like that, it goes through and it talks about all of those things that you should have as a business in case of emergency, backup files and all that sort of stuff. So I think that in the next evolution for us, again, our members want to see us come through the door with something constructive and something that's useful. A thumb drive like that, doesn't cost a lot of money. It's something that I've got room for in my budget, and it's can have all sorts of good information on it.
Mhm.
And if we're talking with a business that isn't signed up for this program yet, I can just say, put this into your computer and click this button, and it takes you right to where you need to go.
Mhm.
So the next evolution is to just make the process and the program easier. And again, if you make it easier, it's not, oh yeah, I can get to that in the next day or two. We found that people that say that, it takes 2 or 3 times walking through the door to get them to
Yes.
actually say that. And the funny thing is you walk through the door together and they say, I forgot to do that, didn't I?
Yes.
So, it's at least they're thinking about it when we walk through
Yeah.
the door together. But the same token, it's like if we can just get them to do it there and then and be done with it, then it's done. And then, we don't have to keep coming back under this idea.
Yeah.
Maybe we could just come back to see how business is going, right? So, and be able to help them with anything else that they might need. So, as far as like a model for economic resilience in other small towns, yeah, I think it's a really good idea. For any chamber or business board of trade to get out in front of your business, and that's a really important. It's probably one of the most important things, just to know that you're thinking about them and that they are an important piece of your business.
Yeah, for
Can
sure.
can
So,
I
to
can I add to
make,
that, Laura?
yes, go ahead.
Because and Clint can maybe back this up, but in a disaster, you want those relationships.
Mhm.
You don't want to be meeting people for the very first time when you're asking them to do something um, under a stressful environment. So, the approach that Clint and Byron have used in Stettler is, from a social capital perspective, is really about building resilience through relationship.
Mhm.
And the platform is just really a sort of a place to take care of sort of that, the critical information. But what Clint and Byron are doing is that they're building those relationships. So, you know, that that in a disaster is going to pay huge dividends, and especially being able to tap into local knowledge. It's like, oh, hey, we need you in this part of the community, and you can just name the community or the street or whatever. They know where it is, they know what it looks like, they understand. And so it's really about tapping into that local knowledge
Yeah,
first and foremost.
great. So, Byron, to make your job easier on thumb drive, I have stuck the link to the Alberta Chamber's Business Resiliency page into the chat. Everything that's there is stuff that we've gathered from different partners. It's all things that people can do, not just things that they need to read. So there is actual plans and templates on how a business can build things out, step by step, things like that, so that it's all in one place. Feel free to grab any of it, use any of it. Red Cross Ready Rating is one of the things that's on there. There's a link to the EML Canada page, along with some other things. And we have been doing webinars that have been really focused on business resiliency and things like cybercrime, community crime, things that are outside of just the Mother Nature stuff, but also are things that really are business interruption, and in some cases can be probably pretty disastrous for businesses. So that kind of information there is there as well. Um, Scott, how can, and we sort of talked about this already, but how can your platform or the platform like EML Canada, how can that bridge government agencies, local businesses, and residents before a crisis hits?
Well, I think Byron and Clint have hit the nail on the head in terms of bridging the relationships at the local level.
Mhm.
Clint's participation on Kramet with the other Central Region Incident Management Team is means that um, he's familiar with the tool. So as Red Deer County builds out their resource list, Lacombe County does the same thing,
Mm.
Mehill County, whatever, then he can log on to the platform and he can find resources, in whatever community he's there to support. And when we met with the provincial minister, Minister Ellis, he had asked that question of Alberta Emergency Management Agency, and I really liked the response. It was um, in a disaster, when communities do what Settler has done, they've elevated their local capacity. So their need to call on the province for backup support has just been extended.
Hmm.
So they may not need the province as quickly because they can use their own resources, they can use their neighbors' resources. But in the event that they need the province of Alberta or AEMA, who is also on the platform, now they can also provide logistics support by, looking across the province and providing. And because it's a virtual platform, and it's available to everybody that's on the platform.
Mhm.
Now you've got logistics support that's across the country. I'm or across the province. I'm here in Lloydminster today. We're
Mhm.
doing some work to support their development of a regional emergency management plan. Of course, they've got the added
Mhm.
benefit of being bi-provincial. So, if we look at this as a national platform, then some of those boundaries and jurisdictions, the line just gets a little blurrier. And it doesn't matter whether the business in Lloydminster is on the Saskatchewan side or on the Alberta side, or if you're Jasper and you needed to draw on resources from
Mhm.
BC or Alberta, a platform like this can help sort of engage more broadly
Mhm.
and uh, and expand your search for resources.
Well, thank you all very much. I would like to open up to the floor. We have an interesting group of people on this call. We've got we've got some chambers. We also have some people that are from private business. We have some people that are involved with municipalities and local communities. So I'd like to open it up to the floor to ask questions, get involved in the conversation. Tom, your neck of the woods has an emergency group, correct?
Yeah, yeah, we've got GPREP, Grand Prairie Regional Emergency Preparedness, I think is the the
Hmm.
acronym. So if there is something going on that requires coordination, then GPREP is called in and command center is set up, and they go from there, regular updates to the community and that sort of thing. Now, I am because I jotted it down, and it would be curious for me to know if they are engaged with all businesses the same way that you folks are in Stettler, because um, I've done some work with GPREP, but don't pretend to know all the ins and outs. And actually, my wife would be a better resource for that, to tell you the truth. But, is there a list of resources? Is there a list of preferred vendors? I'm actually sad to say that I don't actually know that, and it'd be a good thing to look into and review again as to everything that they do. But they've done a good job in the community. Fortunately, we haven't had any major disasters here. But GPREP also covers, out in Sexsmith and things like that. So it is truly regional, but yeah, it is important. And with wildfires and other types of, there was a major fire in Sexsmith a few years ago. I don't even remember how many years ago now. And GPREP was actually called because of the potential for that fire to spread and do a lot of damage. But sort of things like that, it's a very valuable tool and that we have up here, and there's a lot of cooperation between the municipalities to keep it going. So yeah, but it would be. I am now even more curious to know how it compares to what you good folks are doing in Stettler. And that takes me back. Actually, I did my radio internship in Drumheller, and Stettler was one of our sister stations. So when I hear the word Stettler, I kind of smile. So it's kind of nice to see you folks. So.
Good. That's good. Kaylee, I don't mean to call you out, but if you are um, open to having a chat about what's happening in Jasper, we would love to hear from you.
Can you hear me okay?
We sure can. How's things
Okay.
going?
It's going. We're working. So I'm the business liaison for the Jasper Recovery Coordination Center. And so I was not here or involved with the team during the event itself. However, since I've come on, have heard a lot about the need for kind of these types of systems and thinking to be in place prior to the fire and how much more helpful that would have been. So mainly just here to kind of hear what those options are. Because even though we're still definitely in the recovering phase, and that is our number one priority, there's always the risk of another, whether it's a natural disaster, like even the impacts of the tariffs, there's all these other kind of pressures and economic shocks that can happen. So just listening for resources.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us today. Be happy to reach out to you directly to chat further about other things that we've got on the go that might be of use. But yeah, to your point, once you've had a disaster, being prepared for what could eventually happen again is really important because, we've had a few communities in the province that actually went through 2 or 3 disasters all in 1 year. And being prepared beforehand would probably make that process a whole lot smoother. But when it's just one after another, I think it's pretty hard to get to the point where you're kind of caught up and then moving forward in time for the next one. So,
Okay, Laura, if I
yeah.
could just say to Kaylee, the Jasper Hinton Edson corridor is one of the corridors that we're very interested in. We have been working with Banff, Canmore, MD of Bighorn, Cochrane. So we've built a corridor along the Highway 1, and we'd love to connect Jasper, Hinton, Edson. We have Parkland County, City of St. Albert. So there are sort of pockets where, regionally folks could begin to collaborate. And, to Tom's mention about Grand Prairie, we have a number of northern communities that have even actually just come on in the last several weeks. So, I hate to, turn this into a commercial, and it's not my intention, but, please, if you are thinking about it, take advantage of the free promo code available through the Canadian Red Cross, CRCAB, that just wipes out the fees, at least for the next year, until we can find the next solutions. But it gives you that start, a place to start anyways, and use the platform as a talking point or something that you could collaborate around.
I definitely will. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, thanks.
Does anybody else have any questions for our panel?
Not a question, but just a comment. Maybe when Byron was talking about buying a bunch of thumb drives, I was thinking to myself, if you had the info in the cloud, as they say, and you can keep it regular and just hand out QR codes, it'll save you at least the cost of the thumb drives too.
Well, and to that point, that's exactly what we've done with our page on the Alberta Chamber site, because I did not want to be responsible for making sure that the information is updated. So
Well, it changes quickly,
it
like
does.
and if you want to add new resources or things
That's right.
like that, you might be better off, like I said, with a QR code linking it to some sort of a web page or something like that. I 59-year-old me already talking about QR codes, but I mean, it just it's just funny because someone hands you a thumb drive now, and you don't know how, if whether how much of the information has expired the minute you put it in the computer. It's I mean, it's like you said, it's not a major cost for thumb drives, but it might save you a little headache, a few headaches down the road, and able to keep your information up to date just in case.
One of the things that we have on the page is the actual wildfire alert. So that's a feed directly from the Alberta government. So everything that's happening emergency wise in the province, also any alerts that have gone out, whether it be like at one point we had an alert come out uh, that was about a shooting,
Hmm.
not wildfire, but it's all there. So it's an interesting place to sort of keep track of what's going on. Kaylee.
A question I have, and apologies if it's already been addressed in the presentation, was as it relates to especially being available for other communities, are there also resources to accompany this that kind of give businesses a sense of what they should be kind of recording and tracking? And to give some context, we saw this with Valemont, that of course, when Jasper was evacuated, the businesses especially, they opened their hearts to Jasperites, and they just gave endless resources to support the evacuees. However, then what happened after that is that the road was closed between Jasper and Valemont, which meant the remainder of that kind of the busy season was greatly reduced. So I think a lot of businesses gave because that's what you do when someone's hurting, but then there wasn't kind of the knowledge to, okay, but I should also be tracking this inventory and these types of things so that if there's a situation where financially there is opportunity for recompensation, we're in a position to be able to apply for that.
That's a very interesting question. Gentlemen, anybody have a thought on that?
Maybe I can just, yeah, go ahead, Clint.
Sure. So I think I would kind of fall under like disaster recovery funding. So you could go through like the Alberta Emergency Management Agency. If they're in BC, like they have their own as well. That'd be able to have avenues for like that kind of economic relief if they're impacted by a disaster. Otherwise, like one of the things that we've also done in our community is Byron's mentioned the thumb drives. I've made a point of putting like business continuity planning on every single thumb drive as well that I update yearly. I go through all of them. We don't have too many. We kind of try and do it in batches so that it is manageable. I love the QR code idea as well. Problem is a lot of our business owners out in our area are on the older side, shall I say. So trying to get them to use a QR code is kind of, yeah, enough said.
And that's fair. That's fair. That's a fair comment. Yeah.
Hybrid approach I find really works the best. And then also if you have your logo and stuff on it, it's a little bit of PR at the same time. So there is that reoccurring reminder, so to speak. But even doing like business continuity planning workshops in your community, I think will really help hammer that kind of stuff home, especially with the businesses in your community, so that they do kind of have an idea of, hey, if something happens, here's what I need to track. Here's what I can kind of expect as some sort of compensation if my business is impacted, and then it sets them up for success.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, there are elements within the platform, certainly Clint has access to all of the email addresses now of everybody that's on his list. So if he wants to publish some business continuity information, he can actually do that on the platform and connect it to his profile. But he can also, download the list, send out an email to everybody that's on it. So that when there is new information, for example, on disaster financial aid for businesses, for example, then you can use the platform as a way of helping to disseminate information to the businesses that are sort of tuned in to the work that's happening.
Interesting. So Byron, to your comment about the thumb drive, one of the things, and this is from that PR perspective, but the other piece that I think is super important is that the Stettler Board of Trade is trusted. Your business community trusts our chambers of commerce. And so having something that's got your logo on it as information really does sort of reinforce that A, you're able to help them, but B, you're a trusted source for the information, because that's one of the things that you sort of find is when people are looking for information around emergencies on social media, what they find may not actually be what they need. And so in your community and in the region, you definitely are a trusted source. I think that's super important for all of our chambers to really understand when they're dealing with their businesses. There is a comment in the questions, and Mandy, I'm going to read your comment out, and if you'd like to engage in discussion, that would be great. Thanks for the session. I was intrigued by the topic and thought I would pop in. I am with Pathways Adult Learning in the county of 40 Mile, thinking of literacy and digital skills needed in preparedness. Very interesting comments, because I think from that all adult learning perspective, there's lots of people that maybe don't engage with preparedness information in necessarily the same way that others do. So Mandy, do you see where there might be some value in sharing this kind of information with the adult learning centers?
Yeah, definitely. And then transferring it to like a plain language type version if it's not already. I even actually like some of the ideas that came up, right, with the QR code even in the thumb drive, right? How you're kind of the hybrid approach you said, which I really like that, right? Because then there's still that comfort in what they know, and then introducing it in new ways, right? And kind of piecing them together. I thought that was really cool. And even just, yeah, those relationships and trust in those communities in our adult learning, and, being able to incorporate that information like in any of their groups, I think would be really good.
Mandy, the other thing that, just from a literacy perspective, I think it came up in Stettler, maybe it was Red Deer County had asked about translation services. So oftentimes, if people are being evacuated, they're going to a local reception center, and if you don't have, translators there, certainly you can have, and we had this experience in one of our responses, but I believe we now have like 3 different translation services available on the platform. But in Southern Alberta, you may know of, a couple community organizations that do translation services. Well, those are the types of community organizations or businesses that we have to think beyond sort of the trucks and the tractors and the sandbags and so on. We used to talk about sort of from blankets to helicopters, but you think about all the human service supports. And so the article in the Emergency Manager magazine actually has comments from the school division in Stettler, who is in the process of updating all of their information about all their gymnasiums and all of their commercial kitchens and you think about churches that have kitchens and gathering spaces and all those things that would be needed on the human side of, and whether it's for your own community or whether it's to receive people from a neighboring community that have experienced something, we have to think beyond sort of the trucks, trailers, and gravel, because it is sort of a whole of society approach to emergency management.
And to continue on with what Scott's saying, like, first of all, thank you for being a part of the call, Mandy. With adult learning, you represent part of vulnerable population, which can be very difficult for us emergency managers to engage with, and then even be able to get out messaging to. So that is, as Scott mentioned, one of the important pieces that does sometimes get overlooked and really doesn't get the attention it deserves a lot of the time, is how do we engage with those vulnerable sectors of our population that maybe don't have the greatest literacy. Maybe English is their second or even third language. How do we get the messages across to them? So, for example, we have an evacuation. Well, how do we notify all these different forms of people that, okay, like there's something big happening and we need you to get out safely now while there's still time to. So being able to engage adult learning centers, school boards, all those across the board is really key to being able to have a successful program.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, even connectivity can be a challenge for people living remotely, and there may not be the Wi-Fi service, or there may not be. And again, how do you reach those people and warn them and engage them?
And I can't speak to like every community, but in terms of the Stettler area, one of our biggest vulnerable populations is the Hutterite and Mennonite communities. They're not big on technology. So how do we engage with them. Well,
Yep.
that's where having that personal touch really comes in, and having those personal contacts, because we can't just go and put something out on Facebook, Twitter, and social media and expect them to get it and then understand.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And to that point, Clint, they also have a lot of equipment, knowledge, expertise that could contribute.
Yeah, they could be a really good resource too.
Yeah, an excellent
And commercial
resource.
kitchens.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and actually, we had a question from Lethbridge County about being able to list farms, and we, from a platform perspective, we didn't design it so that Joe down the street who happens to have just bought a Bobcat is all of a sudden your weekend warrior. That's not what it's designed for. But their question from Lethbridge County is, but what about farms? And most farms are also corporations, so we've added categories for farms to be able to list their products and services because, of course, if something's happening in their community, they want to be able to help.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
We ran into some difficulties here a couple of years ago when we had fires on the northwest side of the city, or well, in the area, where some were taking matters into their own hands when it came to using equipment and actually causing some issues. And there had to be some discussions, some hard discussions about that with people. And in their hearts, they felt they were doing what they could and needed to do, but in actuality they were hindering the process, and that's a difficult discussion to have with people, and it did raise some ill feelings in some cases, and but again, safety is first for everyone in a situation like that.
That's right. Hi, Tristan.
Hey, I've just been listening in for today, just kind of informative, and to see if there was anything I could take back to our Chamber of Commerce. But as we've moved on to the human element there, I'm a firefighter in Jasper, so I was here last year, and then have since started working with the local not-for-profit that received the bulk portion of our donations to community to support. So I was wondering if Stettler's engaged your local not-for-profits, and I know the Red Cross received a lot of funding, and they are a well-oiled machine at getting it out. But there is that local support that that's where they want their money to go. And it's going to be one of the big things we're dealing with now is, how did the money come in? What was the money intended for? And do we have the capacity to get it out? And so that structuring of your not-for-profits prior to receiving large sums of money is a really good piece in disaster preparedness of, do you have the right pieces in place? Who are the organizations? If you want it to go to food, this is the Jasper Food Bank. If you want it to go to rent services, recovery services, who can you target that to? Or do you have somebody that wants to start to gear towards disaster preparedness and be that responding not-for-profit in that community? So I was wondering if you guys have engaged any of your not-for-profits in Stettler to kind of be ready for that piece.
So we have engaged a few in our area. We don't have a whole terrible lot of not-for-profits operating out in our neck of the woods. Our biggest one is FCSS, for example, that's funded through the town and county. And through that link, we are quite engaged with them. In fact, most of our emergency social services is supported by them in one way, shape, or form. So we do where we can, but that's probably one area where we do need to work on more. But we also just don't seem to have quite as many of them operating out in our neck of the woods. So that has been a little bit of a limiting factor as well. But the ones that are across the board, across Alberta, I guess I should say, like, we do engage with them as well.
Can your FCSS receive funding from the public to distribute an emergency response?
So they can, but the kicker with that one is it really depends on what your emergency preparedness plan says. So we do have a donation management section of our plan. So in short, we don't really want to be taking donated items per se. We have a policy in place of what to do with any kind of monetary donations. If we do happen to just get stuff dropped off, and there's a way to make sure that it can be like safely utilized, like if it's sealed food, for example, yeah, we can go and redistribute it. We have all the process that for that lined up. For like donated food that, for example, isn't necessarily like properly sealed, maybe homemade in the kitchen, do we really want to potentially poison people? No. So there's process that's outlined for being able to deal with that as well. So every community's plan is a little bit different. just depends on what they have previously written.
Awesome. Thanks.
So I have just gotten a note from somebody who's going to use this Zoom line saying, I have a call. So we have run up the top of the hour and I didn't even notice. This has been fantastic. I would like to do this again. I think that the conversation, once you start the conversation, there are so many different bits and pieces that are really important to communities across the province. And having some experts on the call today was fantastic. Thank you
Yeah,
for
thank you guys. That was really good info. Love the discussion, and yeah, it would be interesting to hear other chambers and other parts of the provinces to see what they do in their areas. And I mean, the more we share the information, the more, the better we can all become. So
exactly. Oh.
good
Well,
stuff.
thank you very much. I will send out an email to each of the people that were registered on the call today. We'll give them a link to today's recording, and then we can follow up with any other further information that they're looking for.
Great.
Right on.
Have a great
Thanks
day.
so much, Laura.
Thanks.
Hey, everyone.
Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Lauren.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.